This is my review of the Harry Clark Pro Model board. This is known as the Ghost, as you can see in this gorgeous graphic down here. Right off the bat, I think that this is one of the best graphics released this year for any downhill board. I think the colors are gorgeous. I think that it's very tastefully designed, and that's really nice. They do a lot of great art in their street decks, a lot of cool collaborations. I would love to see that in their downhill lineup, but it seems like they're kind of missing the ball, most of them, except for this. This is a huge improvement for me. The shape is also pretty unique. It's got the distinct tail that you might recognize from the previous Harry Clark Pro model, the Snitch. I like that they kept this design. I think it's attractive, and something that I always say is that I love when a downhill product is immediately recognizable. You know, you see mags even from a distance, even just from the back, and you know that proportion are magnums. You see a gold truck and you know that that's Rogues, or you see the cool green of the Zealous truck. I love that. So when a board's got a distinct shape like this and you can't mix it up for anything else, I like that a lot because it means I get to watch videos of people skating and I can know what their setup is, and that's just fun. That's how I catalog a lot of riders in my head. It's like, what do you ride? How do you ride it? This board is in the category of modern downhill board that I think we're all just accepting is the way of the future, which is build your own concave, as it's immediately very obvious. I've done some pretty serious concave mods to this. This is extreme for any standard. This is a lot of concave mod to have under the ball of your foot. Another thing you'll notice, possibly, it's a little hard to see, I've got another 3D printed concave mod of my own design, kind of an L-shaped W concave implant that gives you a little like almost torque block kind of pocket to dig your foot into. I really like it. I put it on both of my downhill boards right away and I've been a big fan of it. But I'm not here to review my own concave mods. I'm here to review the deck. This board is just so flat. The concave is virtually unnoticeable. You know, that's the state of the industry these days. On these small downhill boards where people are expecting to ride grippy wheels, you know, we're seeing that people want to slap their own torque block on it, and there's a million ways to do that. So no manufacturer is going to have the gall, or most manufacturers are not going to have the gall to put a torque block on a board for you, because that's, you know, your stance is unique and the way you want to ride the board is unique and personal. And you know, it's the more specific you make a board, the more tuned and complex, the more you are limiting the variety of riders that will be able to effectively use that board. So by providing an attractive blank slate board, Madrid is able to sell a bunch of these, and people across a variety of preferences and how they want to set up this thing are going to be happy. So it's a little bit disappointing that there's not some cool concave going on. Some unique features is that, or a unique feature, is that the front has a flush mount recessed maybe about 1/8 of an inch, and the back does not. No flush mount to be seen in the back. And I think that's really cool. This is something that I already like to do on my board, is stagger the height between the front and rear truck. I especially like this on boards that have rocker. This board has really subtle rocker, so subtle that I doubt you can see it right now, especially with the way that the camera warps things as it goes to the edges. It might be flattening it out even more than it is in person. This board has rocker, and what that means is that, at least on a board like this, which feels like the rocker's right in the middle, that's the low point on your hammock. And when you bias the ride height to be taller in the back and lower in the front, aka like putting a flush mount in the front, recessing that truck to be deeper in the board, you shift that rocker forward a little bit, and it means the low point's at your front truck. And so now you've got kind of an elevated upward tilted surface to dig into with your back foot, and it kind of helps your weight transfer forward onto the front foot. I think it feels really good for tucking. Just makes a lot of that stuff, tuck leaning, feel really nice and natural. So I already do this using risers on my boards. As you can see, I am using risers despite my video saying don't use risers. The video is more complex than that. It doesn't just say don't use risers, but I find myself using risers on this board because the flush mount plus this don't trip downhill side-bend, I have it on a fixed base plate, which makes the ride height even lower than the stock ride height. I was getting a lot of problems with wheel bite. And that brings me to another complaint, is that the wheel wells, very distinct for Madrid. It's gonna be hard to see on the camera because they covered it up with the graphic, which I think is cool. It's a slightly newer direction for Madrid. Historically, Madrid does their kind of like almost shark tooth wheel wells where there's like 2 or 3 rounded sections and you can see the plies of wood behind it. I think it's really attractive. My favorite is the Madrid Nessie because they always put a green ply of maple in the middle so that when you revealed it with the wheel wells, you'd have like a green stripe in it. It's gorgeous. The covered wheel wells, you know, covering them up with the laminate graphic, that's fine. That's not bad. I think it still is attractive. I like that the graphic is continuous throughout the board, you know, except for the flush mount, but that's going to be covered with the truck anyway. My one complaint is that, so you might be able to see if I can get some of the glare right, there's a high point in the middle here. There's a low point, high point, low point. Well, that means that this high point in the center is extremely susceptible to getting wheel bite. And all the wheel bite I've had on this board is right there in that high point. So I guess what I would say is that I wish the flush mounts were more consistently deep, that they had the same depth all the way through. Honestly, if they were routed like what Zenit does and a lot of other manufacturers, Rocket, Land Yachts and their downhill boards, if the flush mounts were routed, I think that that would be a big improvement in just the usability of the different wheelbases. Even me, somebody who believes that you should not be tuning your setup to counteract wheel bite, got a little bit nervous. And also, I think a little bit of ride height helps, you know, just grip and braking force you can get out of slides. So having a slightly higher ride height sometimes is the right move for my preferences in my setup. I've enjoyed the shift on this board just from a feel standpoint, but I did spend a lot of time skating it without risers. And yeah, it's a bite city up here in the front. So these don't feel super optimized, but it's whatever. Another thing I really like about this board is the variety of wheelbase options. You've got options from 22 to 19 inches, which really encompasses the like new modern length that people want to see from longboard companies. A lot of people are re-drilling their boards down to these 19-inch wheelbases, 20-inch. A lot of decks are just being modified afterwards, almost instantly out of the factory. Consumers are buying them, re-drilling them to have a shorter wheelbase, and I like that Madrid addressed that and provides that. Also, what having a variety of wheelbases allows you is that if I like a 21-inch wheelbase, which Owen does, I do tend to like around a 21-inch wheelbase, it means that I have a full inch or more up and down that I can shift that 21-inch wheelbase. It means that I can keep the wheelbase the same and bring it more forward on the board or more backward on the board, which allows me to keep my implants in the same place because I know this is the stance I like, the separation that I like, but it changes how much bias I have on my front and rear truck without changing my stance at all, without changing how I'm putting weight on my board at all. And I think it's just very useful. It's very nice. Now, a complaint that I have is that the wheelbase options provided are pretty spread out, which usually isn't much of a problem because a lot of modern trucks have a variety of spacing options so that you can do micro adjustments up and down. These are using the new school mounting pattern, which is like 2.125 or 2 1/8 inch between the long ways of the mounting holes. And that limits a fair number of trucks from being able to do that kind of adjustment. I know that these don't trips Having that mounting space doesn't allow me to utilize the several mounting holes that this has, which is something that I'm used to doing on my Zenit custom board, is being able to adjust it by those very, very small amounts. And also, it's nice because if you're using a foot stop, it gives you a much more precise range of places that you can place it, in the circumstance that it doesn't have like a slot that you can adjust the foot stop through. This one's of my own design. It has a slot in the back, but I hide it by only having a circle so that you can put a screwdriver through it. I still have the adjustability that I want, but on, you know, foot stops like the Slab, this really popular foot stop from Riptide, if you're not drilling your own holes in the board, you're going to be pretty limited in where you can put that. So it's easy to adjust. It's easy to know what your exact wheelbase length is. It's just not the tunability that I've come used to with my downhill boards. The construction is 4 layers of Formica and I think 8 or 7 plies of maple. This is unprecedented. I don't think anybody's done this many layers of Formica, but leave it to Madrid to put Formica in any board that they produce instead of doing carbon fiber or fiberglass like every other company. They really seem to swear by Formica. It seems to keep costs down, which I really like. This board is only $160, which is pretty competitive for this area of the market. And many times a year, Madrid is running a sale where you can get 20-25% off of this board. And that's when I bought it, was their 4th of July sale. I ordered this board because it was $120 for a deck that was, you know, relatively hyped. The promotional video that they put out for it is really cool. I was excited about it and I knew that people would want to see a review about this board. So I picked it up. 120 bucks for a really capable downhill deck is a steal. Even 160 bucks for this kind of deck is, you know, pretty good nowadays. The 4 layers of Formica seem to keep this extremely stiff. I have no complaints about the stiffness at all. Even though I've been riding it for a little while now, put some wear and tear on it, put it through some vast temperature changes between very hot weather and very, very cold weather. It seems to be holding up just fine. One of the very first things I did with it was the first night I assembled this, skating around campus, and I totally slipped out in a wet spot that was just unavoidable and sent this board crashing into a curb. Immediately split this nose, kind of delammed it a little bit. You can see since then I've done a decent job repairing it. I kind of chiseled off the split part that was indented upward, and then I mixed up a like 5-minute set epoxy just to seal up this front end and protect it from further damage and like water being able to get in through those exposed pores of the wood. This board is pretty, you know, on par for durability. I've heard some complaints about the durability of products out of the Huntington Beach, Madrid factory. I'm getting hot. I gotta take this beanie off. Hair's really long these days. Heard some complaints about durability from a number of people. I've owned a couple Madrid boards now, had no problems with them. And my friends that have Prism boards also seem to not have too much. They're made in the same factory, if you weren't sure. Valhalla, Madrid, Prism. So I've always been pleased with the durability of these boards, but just know that that's not everybody's experience. It did seem to hold up to a pretty nasty stomping. You know, with the flush mount so close to the front of the board, I really expected to see some cracks permeating through there, especially having mounting holes up so far, that would be a place for it to channel energy and split. But it survived. So I'm pleased, I'm happy. This board, just like any maple board these days, is really heavy. That is kind of nice because it smooths out your inputs into the board. A lot of modern freeriders enjoy the feeling of a weighted setup, and I think a nice thick maple board like this is a decent way to emulate that without adding a weight, but also because it's all, you know, maple and Formica, drilling this board to put a weight in it, I don't think it's going to affect the structural integrity. I think you're fine to do that. But B, it's all wood and Formica, so it's easy to drill. You don't have to worry about like fiberglass or carbon fiber getting shot up into the air and, you know, just the nasty things associated with that. I feel like just a maple board and this Formica and the price of this board makes me a lot more confident in chopping it up. You know, adding screws into the board is something that I might do in the future, just to experiment. I'm kind of against screws because I've seen them tear up soles of shoes, especially brake soles, and that's just expensive. And I am not a big fan of that. I want my gear to last, so I much prefer to do drastic concave mods like this to kind of keep my feet locked in place. This is a serious little implant here. If you're curious, it's a prototype downhill implant. Max Caps company, you can find him on like Mirrorskate and stuff like that, or order him from him directly. He hooked me up with this, and I'm a really big fan of it. It's really big, it's exaggerated, but man, my front foot is locked, even with fresh mags. Which you can see, I'm skating some pretty new mags. I've done a number of races on this board. Feels pretty good, feels solid. Because it's pretty heavy, it's a little bit hard to push off the line, but also I'm coming from a board, the Moonshine Spirit, that is the lightest board I've ever felt. So kind of every board I'm trying in this kind of micro category still seems really heavy to me. But I think this is a great platform for freeride. I think you can see Jeb on Instagram freeriding this deck a lot. It makes perfect sense to me. It's only 8.8 inches wide, I think, if I remember correctly. So that's a little bit narrower than I'm used to freeriding. But because it is so immensely flat, the board feels a little bit wider than what you might be familiar with an 8.8 inch board feeling like. So I think that this type of board, really freeride compatible. You've got your micro wheelbase, you've got some easy drilling potential to put your weights on it. This truly is one of the best build your own board type of boards, right? If you want to mess around with stuff, if you want to chop stuff up, if you want to do small wheelbase, you want to try weights, I think this is one of the best boards you can do for that. I just am a little bit personally disappointed that Madrid didn't go further out of their way to make it a unique concave, or you know, something that kind of works for Harry Clark without him having to do his own concave mods, because he's got the torque block on there. It'd be cool if they incorporated something like that. I don't know, it's you want to see a pro model be more distinct, and I think that's my honest opinion. Pro model board, I want it to absolutely be fine-tuned and the baby of that rider. I want it to just, but hard to sell boards that are, you know, one size only. You got to have a all size fit. I'm forgetting the phrase. One size fits all. That's what this board is. One size fits all. If you buy it, you're probably going to be happy with it. It's just not extraordinary. I can't say too much awesome stuff about it because it's pretty it's just good. It's just basic. So yeah, let me know what you think. If you've skated this board yourself, I want to hear about it. I've been seeing a number of these lately. I've seen a lot of people racing them on like the 19-inch wheelbase, which I find a little surprising. You know, the 19-inch wheelbase, I've only expected free riders to be mostly interested in that, but it seems like downhill skaters are starting to try that too. And as for this footstop, if you're interested in getting one and a number of other 3D printed products I designed, you should check out my Patreon. I started a Patreon so that I could post just more of the off-the-cuff, unpolished content that a lot of people say that they have enjoyed from me, which is incredibly flattering. So for $5 a month, if you hang out for at least 3 months, I'll send you a little goodie box of all this dope stuff, footstop being one of them. And if you want a little something unique, maybe we can chit chat about that. There's other tiers for that. And at the very least, if you want to pay just $3 a month, then you get access to, I think it's like 5 hours of content now. Race recaps, first reaction gear stuff. I've been skating a handful of precision trucks that I'm gearing up to review on the channel, but that's not going to happen for another couple months. I got some stuff I'm working on there, some collaborations with companies that I'm looking forward to, and Patreon's all going to see it first. As always, I'm going to post my most polished content on this channel, the big reviews, the stuff that I'm proud of, want to share with the world. But Patreon gets some of the more unfiltered, off-the-cuff, first reaction type content. So thank you so much to all my patrons. You can see them on screen now. And you, my viewers, I hope you have a wonderful day.